Hello again, everyone. This is Gilmer, and this is the Let's Play of War in the West. I will shut up and let you watch this video for a little bit. Well, I can talk a little bit through it. Obviously, this is footage from World War II, the European theater. And I love the opening. I really do. A lot of people say, well, when it first came out, a lot of people said, oh, they kind of downplayed it and said, oh, this is the same footage you always see, and, kind of ran it down a little bit, but I kind of like it. And then, of course, they have the posters used. We're seeing scenes from North Africa, it looks like. That's Patton. General George S. Patton, I believe, is his middle initial, is S. George S. Patton. American general. You see a picture, a rendered drawing of an M3. It looks, the Sherman, M4 Sherman, sorry. That looks like it was a German airplane, so it was probably a Bf 109 or a Focke-Wulf 190, because it was a single engine fighter. And then you see the destroyers probably steaming on their way to Normandy. Or it could be, the convoys. That's Normandy. That looks like the landings in Normandy. And that looks like them going inland from Normandy. And it also has the credits for people who are doing things, art and graphics, cartographer. Very interesting. I could watch this all day. Looks like street fighting in France. Alright, that's enough of that. You can watch that if you buy it. So I thought I'd take a couple of minutes to just go over some of the settings that I'm going to use for this playthrough. As you can see, I'm using version 1.01.37. There is a beta patch out that's named something like 1.0354. I don't have the beta patch. This is on Steam, so I let it automatically update to the newest version. And well, no, wait a minute. Back up. War in the West is not on Steam. And actually, I use the update program that comes with War in the West, and it updated it to 1.0137. And I guess the reason it did not update it to the beta patch is that it's not official, so they won't put it in the upgrade program. The program won't update you to a beta version because there still might be changes to that beta version. So I don't know if this is the latest official version, but I'm hoping it is, because I used the upgrade clicky or whatever you want to call it on the opening screen. It says check for updates. I checked for updates, and it updated me to 1.0137. Now, of course, I ran on and on about that. I'm sure you really don't care about what version. You probably have no clue what the versions are, especially if you don't have the game. If you do have the game and want to play it, you probably already know about all that. So let's go to the settings. So I am going to play as the Western Allies, and you might see it used abbreviated as WA, as Western Allies or something along those lines, or just the Allies. And then the Axis or the Germans are going to be played by the computer. Difficulty, I'm going to choose normal difficulty. This is my first time ever playing this. I did learn a little bit by watching videos and also reading after action reports a little bit and a little bit of tips here and there, because I didn't want to go in completely blind, because these games, War in the West and War in the East and War in the Pacific, you cannot go into blind. I've always been one of those kinds of people, used to, when you got the got the game, it would come in a big box and you would have gotten it from, I don't know, GameStop or one of those boutique games or whatever in the mall, and you would have this nice box and have nice art on the box, and then you'd open it up and it'd have the CD and the manual and some errata cards and things like that. And I completely lost my train of thought, to be honest with you. But I know where I was going with that. In those days, I would just jump into the game. I'd load it up into the computer and jump into the game and start playing. These types of games, these games are so detailed and so intricate, things like that. You cannot just jump into it and play. If you do that, you're going to get discouraged. You won't want to play the game. You'll turn it off. You'll look at it for a couple of, maybe 30 minutes, run a few turns, be completely baffled as to what's going on, and turn it off and maybe not ever go back to it. That's what has happened with a lot of people in War in the Pacific. Now, one thing I want to do is I'm going to turn the sound off. I mean, not the sound, but just the music, because you can't hear me. And I'm sure the music is very annoying at times when you're trying to hear me over the music. And I noticed yesterday that I was talking a little low, and talking low with music, you can almost not hear me at all. So I'm turning the music off. But anyway, you cannot jump into these games and expect to be able to play it immediately. You have to learn a little bit about these games. And so there, as I was saying, a lot of people picked up War in the Pacific Admiral's Edition, and they went into it and tried to play a few turns. And I've done it myself. I've jumped into it and tried to play a few turns, and it was so overwhelming that I stopped playing. I didn't uninstall it. It's still sitting on the computer, but I've not really jumped into the game as much as I should have, because it's a great game. And that's what happened. So that's why I learned a little bit. I read up a little bit. I watched a few videos and tried to make a concerted effort to know at least some of the bare basics of playing this game. Because if you don't, you will not get the game, and you will not want to play it, and you won't like it. So anyway, difficulty normal, game options. These all have been set before. They are not the default. The default, I don't know what the defaults are, but I did put on Fog of War and Movement Fog of War for both of us. I don't know what the computer sees or doesn't see of my side, but I don't want to see what he's doing, because even though it would help me, I don't want that help, because I think I'm good enough to beat it on normal. You don't have to be perfect to beat it on normal. It's a challenge, especially for somebody who's never played it before, but I still think that I'm capable of beating it on normal. I've played War in the East a lot. When I say a lot, I've only played that one campaign game, but I've played a lot of the smaller scenarios. So I know a little bit about the mechanics, so I feel like on normal I can beat it. And what normal means is we're basically on the same level. And the advantage I have is that I'm not the AI. I don't have set routines that I think in. I can do different things, things that the AI might not have been programmed to look for. I don't want to do anything gamey, but in real life, if you know that the opposite side is building up a certain beach or something like that, so to the point where it'll be impossible to attack that beach, you're going to go to another beach. And the AI doesn't you know, that's one of the knocks against the AI in just about every game. Excuse me, I'm adjusting myself here. That's one of the knocks in the AI is that the AI can't look for patterns from the other side and say, oh, this is what they're doing. I'm going to counter that. It can do it to a certain extent. I will say that. But it is not. You can trick the AI a lot easier than you can trick a human because a human knows that you're probably trying to trick them. So they're looking for tricks. So anyway, so I think 100 to 100 on all levels is you know going to be enough of a challenge for me, even though this is my first playthrough. There are no penalties for beachhead victory points. I'm a little shady on that. I don't really know what that means. And I don't think that cursing over it will tell me. I think it means that if you don't have a certain beachhead by a certain point in the game, then they start penalizing you, such as if you don't have a beachhead in France by July, you start getting penalized. And if you don't have a beachhead in Italy by a certain, I want to say Italy or Sicily or something, you start getting penalized. But optional city VPs, I have that selected. And then it says, is this player using Fog of War rules? Yes, I am. I don't know what that means. All I know is that I just think that this means that it's going to give you VPs if you own a city or not. I don't know. But I have it checked. It wasn't checked and I checked it. So that's what I'm going to go with. So we'll look at preferences. I'm in window mode. Graphic quality I have as high as possible, high quality graphics. Scroll speed, message delay, mouse over delay, all these are pretty standard. Combat resolution message delay, combat resolution message level. Now what this does is it's set on a level where you get very minimal information about a battle. It will say, X number of troops, from the 5th Division attacked X number of troops of the 10th Division, this side one or that side one. And it gives you the odds of a little bit of that. But if you put it on more detail, you'll get things like, Sherman M4 A1 attacked Tiger, blah, blah, blah. And this is what happened. You get much more detail down to individual tanks or individual planes attacking each other. And you just don't need that. I mean, it's fun to watch for a few minutes and it's interesting to watch for a few minutes, but after about 5 minutes of that, you want it to just go faster, and this will make everything go faster. Air execution phase detail, I have it on low. I can always turn that up if somebody wants it turned up. This also goes back to what I was talking about. It'll, if you have this on low, I think this is the part where it'll be the planes, and you'll see, a P-51 attacked a Focke-Wulf 190, and the Focke-Wulf was damaged or something, and it's returning to base or something like that. Show the jump map. That's just a small little map down in one of the corners that shows you the whole theater, and you can click on it to go to different places. Like if I'm looking at Italy or Sicily or North Africa and I wanted to go to England, it would show the island way up here, and then I could just click on that and the screen would jump to that area, so I could work on England type stuff, English stuff in England. Show ground element aircraft icons. I actually do want that on, I think, but just because I just want to know where they are. Show army front colors. Yes. Show move path. I think that is, I don't know if it tells you. Show path from selected units to cursor. Okay, so it is going to show you how the unit will path through the different hexes to where your cursor is, which is kind of nice, because if it's going through an area you don't want it to go through, you can change around what you're doing. Show allowed movement. Yes, and what that does is just it gives you the furthest possible hex that the selected unit could get to, and depending on what type of terrain you go through, that could change. If you're, it's the path is going through all clear terrain, you might be out 10 hexes out, but if you purposely make it march through forest terrain, it'll go down to 4 or 5 hexes out. So that's something that I wanted to have on. Autosave game, yeah. Starting zoom level in, that's pretty self-explanatory. I'll be zoomed very far in. Move animation, I might turn that off at some point, just because I think the game will move quicker. Actually, I think I will. No, I'll leave that on for maybe the first 2 turns or 3 turns, and we'll see what that looks like. Because I remember in War in the East, if you had the show move animation on, the game took forever, because you could have, if you had motorized infantry or something along those lines, it could go 35 or 40 hexes, and it would show it jump to each hex in between all the way to the final hex. And that's just not fun for anybody. It takes too long. You look at it and you go, yeah, that's interesting. You watch it maybe 3 or 4 times and you think, okay, it's time to turn that off too. Music volume, I turn the music completely off. I do have the sound effects up, and that's mostly for, when you're doing attacks, it'll give you sound effects, and I'll try not to be trying to talk over the sound effects. Mouse click volume, I had this turned down to about 4, and it was annoying that I could barely hear it, so I turned it back up. And if anybody has a problem with that, they can mention it. I might turn it down a little bit. Unit value displays type, numeral. Name, numeral. Show unit name or numeric info on counter. We'll leave that at numeral. Unit counter info, combat. CV move, shows counter info as attack combat value, movement points, attack combat value equals defense combat value, or garrison value, movement points if using numeral preference. So basically what that tells you is, I guess, attack combat value. So it's going to tell you the combat value and maybe the defense value. I'm going to keep that on combat. Hex pop-up location is going to happen at the cursor. That's fine. Show river rail info. Yes. Pretty self-explanatory. Auto air directive creation screen. I don't really want that because I'm not going to use auto air directives, but I do kind of want to have it just in case, because I want to be able to see if there are any auto air directives, because then I'm going to clear them out, because I'm doing everything manually. So we're going to exit the preference screen. This will load a saved game, but I don't want to load any saved games. Pick scenario, and as you can see, we have several scenarios. I do have the expansion called Operation Torch, which is mostly in North Africa. Torch to Tunisia, I think, is the campaign for Operation Torch, and it's basically from the beginning of the North African campaign until the end of the North African campaign, which the end of North African campaign is basically a couple of months before the beginning of the Italian campaign and the Sicily campaign. And so it's basically, if you have Operation Torch and the main game, you basically have the game from the beginning of the second front, the African campaign, all the way through to the end of the war. So basically all offensive operations from 42 on. So, and then you can see there are a bunch of different scenarios, and then the campaign for the Italy and Europe is 19 D-Day start, 1944 to 45. So D-Day start, which would have been June 6th or June 4th. I can't remember. My mind's fried right now. I think it's June 4th, but could be wrong. Could be June 6th. Actually, I think it's June 6th. How can I not remember that? I think my brain is finally starting to go. And then the 44-45 campaign may start, which is just a month or so before D-Day. So instead of having, in this start, your troops, I think, are already in France. You already have a beachhead. In this campaign, your troops are in the ports on the island of England, ready to disembark or embark, and then go to Normandy or wherever you're going. And then the 43 through 45 campaign is from the Sicily campaign through the end of the war, and that's what I'm going to do. And then there's some other user-made scenarios or alternate history scenarios, as this one is. It has additional air HQs and introductory scenario, Operation Husky, introductory scenario, air campaign. These are for if you want to learn the game. It teaches you a little bit, but it does not really do the game justice. I mean, I played Operation Husky about 10 times, and I couldn't tell you that it taught me how to play the whole game, because it didn't. It taught me how to beat Sicily, is basically all it did. It didn't teach me how to do a bunch of other things. Now, every question that I had is covered in the manual, and the manual is very long. If you read the manual as, RMTM or whatever they call it, or RMFTM, read RTMFM or something, read the motherfucking manual, I think is what that stands for. And it's almost impossible to read the whole manual and assimilate everything it tells you, because you're going to forget stuff and you're going to need to remember it, and you're going to be going back to that manual constantly, or you're going to go to the forums and ask questions, or you're going to you won't need to ask it, somebody else has asked it and you're going to read it. But everything is covered somewhere. The Matrix forums are an indispensable tool for you to use when you're trying to learn these games. I even just asked a couple of questions about amphibious operations on the boards just within the last couple of days, and somebody answered, and it was on a thread that was, the last post on it was probably May 2016, and somebody is still looking at those forums and still posting, and answered me within a couple of hours. So that's something that you can play the introductory scenarios, but you're going to have to either read the manual or ask questions. It's just going to happen. And then a couple of these others, Battleground Italy, I think that is just the Italian campaign from Sicily and up through Italy. It doesn't handle anything in France or Germany. And then Breakout and Pursuit 44, I think this is after they've landed in Normandy and they've broken through the initial defenses, and the Germans are pulling back to the west wall or whatever defensive lines they're trying to build after they've realized Normandy's gone and they're not going to keep them from breaking out. So anyway, I'm going to pick the 43 through 45 campaign. July 3rd, 1943 through August 3rd, 1945, historical overview. Having spent 3 long years in the wilderness of war, British troops finally crossed the Mediterranean to assail the outward bastion of Hitler's fortress Europe. Unlike the past, Operation Husky is no pinprick commando raid, but a full-scale invasion. The British have come to Sicily with the American army, and they have come to stay. The liberation of Europe has begun. I don't know. I know it's corny, but I get chills just reading that. I mean, it really was one of the greatest events in human history, was the liberation of Europe. Scenario overview. The Allied player must make use of his naval and air supremacy to get ashore in Europe and stay. Only by bringing the ground war to the continent can the Allies win. At the same time, politics demands neutralization of German U-boats and V weapons. And the V weapons are those V rockets that they used to shoot into the island of England, and it's called the Blitz, I think, is what they would call it, in which they shot V2 weapons and V1 weapons and killed tens of thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, and just obliterated whole towns and cities. And London was just completely, I wouldn't say completely, but it was heavily damaged, and lots of people lost their lives. People that weren't even, troops or anything. They were elderly and children and everything else, and that's why they built, the British built such extensive underground tunnels in which to take refuge when those V2 bombs were coming. So anyway, politics demands neutralization of the German U-boats and the V weapons and a vigorous strategic bombing campaign. The Allied player may retarget amphib airborne forces on turn 1 and retain 49 preparation points. Scenario length 109 turns. Allied admin points per turn 10. Axis admin points per turn 5. There is no Axis player turn on turn 1. Author Trey Marshall, El Jefe. Admin points, what you use for those is to change leaders of HQs, build up airfields, which I'm going to be doing on turn 1, and just other things of that nature. There are certain admin costs, and what that is to kind of give you a bottleneck of trying to do things, because if you were able to switch leaders at random, at any time you wanted, for as much as you wanted, it would be game breaking, really, if you ask me. So you click here to load the scenario. And I know I've talked for 27 minutes already, and I don't know if you notice it, but my voice starts going out after about 20 minutes or so. It kind of sounds the same way, but this is the automatic air directive creation screen, and as you can see, they've already set air directives for our air forces. They've already said that Tactical Air North Europe wants to bomb airfields. That's okay. Fine, whatever. That might be the smart thing to do. I'm not going to do it. I'm not saying it's stupid to not do it, because there are other things you could bomb, but it's just not anything I'm going to do. I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to clear all this out. But if you want to take a look at this, if you want the AI to kind of manage your air, this is the screen that you would want to do it in. And you would say, okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 air, areas or whatever. There are more air HQs in this, but so they're like 2 or 3 under Tactical Air Mediterranean, Tactical Air North Europe, Strategic Air Day, Strategic Air Night, and then you say, okay, for Strategic Air Day, which would be your B-24s and your B-17s, I want them to attack oil and fuel. And so what they would do is the AI would set up your bombing raids, and you could just say, AI, do it all, and then they would just do it. And although you can do it this way and still probably win the game, it is not as efficient as setting it all up yourself, because there are certain things you can do. You can move your airplanes around and get them more efficient, and actually get this to, if you're going to beat it on challenging, you probably have to manage the air war yourself. You probably can't win on challenging difficulty if you're not managing your own air. So this says ground attack north, ground attack south. It says ground attack airfields. And I'm going to just, instead of clicking through every single one of those, I can say set all air priorities to none. And it says show the screen at the start of the turn. Yes, I'm just going to do that yes each time. And the reason is just to make sure that the AI is not doing anything, because I want to do it. I want to do everything. And even though it's going to take longer to manage the air war, I want to make sure that the airplanes are flying the missions I want them to fly. Because even if you say, okay, I want them to do, let's say oil, and put that on heavy oil, heavy bombing. No bombing, low priority, medium priority, high priority, and no priority, which means it's not going to bomb any of these. Even if you put that, sometimes the AI gets it into their mind, hey, there aren't any oil things to bomb, so let's bomb the resource, or let's bomb the manpower. But if you do it yourself, you can pick the cities that you want to bomb, you can pick the industry that you want to bomb, you can pick what planes you want to use to bomb that, and make it much more efficient. And that's what I'm going to do. So I set air priorities to none, and then I said, yes, I want to see this at the beginning of the screen. I think you have to set air directives at none, and now everything is clear and you can set up stuff yourself. But before we do that, we have to do certain things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into air transfer, and I'm going to transfer all long-range fighters and all 4-engine bombers to England. And the reason I'm going to do that is because at the beginning of the Italian campaign, it's really hard to reach anything of importance from North Africa. Now, you can bomb Sicily, but there's not really, and if we look at factories, there's not much for factories in Sicily. They have manpower. This looks like little silhouettes of people. That's manpower. The obviously the anchor icon means a port, and then this little I don't know what you call it, but it looks like a railroad track, because it is. It's for rail. You can bomb it and decrease their rail. And so there's not much real factory in Sicily. So there's no reason necessarily to bomb factories here. Now, you do want to do some things when you're attacking Sicily. You want to have control of the seas, naval superiority, and air superiority over the seas to protect your amphibious forces as they're moving in to engage the enemy on the beaches of Sicily. But you don't need strategic bombing. So, and that's what the 4-engine bombers, the B-17s, the B-24s, I believe the Halifaxes and the Lancasters are 4-engine bombers. You don't need them in North Africa at this point. Now, when I get up to here in Italy, then now that is the time I might need the 4-engine bombers. So I'm going to move, and as you can see, they've got a few. These numbers indicate how many airplanes are at these airfields. 58 airplanes, 31 airplanes, 38 airplanes. I don't know how we know that, because I haven't run any air recon, and as you can see, this has 117 airplanes. If I were to click on that, let's see, what does it say? 117. As you can see, 117. That's the number of airplanes. I believe that's for ready airplanes. And the way you find out if you don't know if a plane is a 4-engine bomber or a 2-engine bomber, you can click this and it'll tell you this is a 1-engine. Says day and night, so it's a tactical bomber that can fly during the day and the night, and it uses 1 engine. So I'm going to leave all the tactical bombers in North Africa, because we're going to use them to kind of control the seas, naval interdiction, and also do some bombing in Sicily, and some air reconnaissance. But obviously the bombers won't be doing the air reconnaissance, but I am going to do air reconnaissance. So after saying all of that, if you look at this screen over here on the left, it'll show you your air commands, or your overarching headquarters for airfields. And so you have your Malta Air Command, Strategic Air Force, which is I don't know if that's supposed to be British or American, but I think it's British. Tactical Air Force and Coastal Air Force, and then Troop Carrier Command, and then our RAF Transport Command, RAF Fighter Command. So this is the British. That's RAF stands for Royal Air Force. And then there should be down here the RAF Bomber Command. And that's British as well. And I believe the strategic, some of the Malta might be the only one. I don't know if the Tactical Air Force, but it can tell you. See, Victoria. Okay, Victoria is this airfield. This is the Mediterranean. So the Tactical Air Force covers the Mediterranean, and the Malta Air Force covers the Mediterranean as well. So what I want to do, and I know I'm going over 30 minutes for this first video, but I wanted to cover a lot of things, and the first turn is going to take a long time, so be prepared unless you want me to do it off screen. Well, and then you won't see exactly what I'm doing, but I will try to describe it as I'm doing it. But as you can see, this is North Africa. You see Benghazi, you see Constantine, which I'm not exactly sure, but it looks like it's in Algeria. Navarins in Algeria. So all these B-27s and all these B-17s, I'm going to move to England. The long-range fighters, which is P-38s are long-range. This B-25 is a 2-engine bomber, tactical bomber, I guess. I'm not sure. I could put it in tactical, I guess, but it's a 2-engine bomber. I'm going to leave it in North Africa. B-25s. B-26 I think is a 2-engine, but let's just look. It says engines 2, so that is it. I'm going to leave that in North Africa. Let's see. Then you have your Halifaxes. 4 engines. I'm going to transfer that to England. And you just go through these. You have your recon airplanes. REC means recon. FB means fighter bomber groups. LB means level bombers. And I don't know, and I guess fighters would just say fighters. And night fighters, which are very important because you're going to do some night bombing as well. You want to have night fighters, and it'll say NF for night fighter. And I just have to find them. I'm going to transfer all night fighters to England as well, because my air campaign is going to have the 8th Air Force, which is the USA. They're going to be bombing during the day, and in Europe, in Germany, with the B-17s and B-24s. The British, the RAF Bomber Command, is going to be using the Halifaxes, the Lancasters, and the Stirlings to bomb night, because they trained and their crews knew how to do it, and maybe the planes were just set up for it, but they could do night bombing raids, and they're going to do night bombing raids. And so I also will need night fighters to escort them during the nighttime phases. So that's why I'm doing it. You have these Blenheims, which is a tactical bomber, and I do believe it has engines of 2. Now, if you pull up the airplane screen, you can see just about any information you would ever want to know about each air group what type of airplane they have, and the airplane will tell it'll show you a picture of the airplane, and it'll tell you every single thing you would ever want to know about that airplane. And then you can look at the pilots, and I think you can switch pilots, and then you can look at, that's the aircraft, and then that's the planes, and it'll tell you what type of plane is in this air squadron, air group, whatever they call it. I guess SQM would stand for squadron. And it tells you have the Blenheim VD, which I have no clue what VD means. It does not mean what you think it means. And it tells you their damage, and it tells you their readiness. And as you can see down here at the bottom, we have 6 Blenheims that are damaged and are being repaired. So they're not going to be available for any kind of mission. And it gives you their, the squadron's emblem. I don't know what that is, and it's almost impossible for me to read. But it says mission setting day and night, so it can bomb during the day or the night. Our replacements are just set at normal. Aircraft is set to manual, and when that is set to manual, you can click it and then click these arrows, and then it'll tell you what airplane you can switch it to. And it has all these level bombers that you can switch it to. But I'm not going to worry too much about that at this point. I'm just going to keep all 2 engine bombers in North Africa, keep all, or transfer all and keep all 4 engine bombers in strategic bombers in England, set up all the long-range fighters in England, set up all the night fighters in England, all the short-range fighters I'm going to put in North Africa, and they're going to be used in Italy. Your short-range fighters, the only one I can think of at the moment, but I know there are a couple more, was the P-47. Its range was not very, very far. And the P-47's range is something like 353 miles. So I think that means it can go out half that and then come back half that. So they can only go 175 miles or so out and then have to come back before they'll run out of fuel on the way home. As you can see, these 2 engine bombers have a radius of 568 miles. And then if you let's pull up a 4 engine. Let's pull up a B-24 Liberator. As you can see, their radius of miles is 1,006. So they can go out a lot further than probably any other airplane. This is probably the highest range we have. Although the Lancasters and the British 4-engine bombers might be able to go out further than that. But the point I'm trying to make is your fighters can only go out so far, so you want your long-range fighters to escort these types of bombers, and that's why we're going to put all the long-range fighters in England with all the 4-engine bombers. And I'm probably going to do that next turn. I'm already running at 42 minutes, but I still wanted to just go over some of that. And as you can see, the first phase of this war, and as I mentioned, this campaign will go from the invasion of Sicily on through until the invasion of Europe, through taking of Germany, and I do believe I will take Berlin before August 3rd, 1945, but you never know. So anyway, the first real turn of action will come right here. This is Sicily. Historically, the Americans and British attacked, and I think maybe the Free French were part of it, and the Canadians as well. All the Commonwealth, if I don't say the Canadians, or if I don't say, the Polish, or if I don't say, just know I know that they're there. I'm not shortchanging them by not mentioning every single one every single time, but I know that the Canadians are involved in this, and I know that the British and the Americans, and the Polish were basically people who had escaped Poland at the beginning of the war. When Poland surrendered, they escaped Poland, got to England, and they reformed as fighter formations or land formations under the British flag. They were, they were Polish. They were still Polish, and they had their own flags and everything, I think. But everybody knew they were Polish, and they had their own commanders and everything. But they basically were part of the English armies, and and fought in conjunction. They didn't do anything on their own. There wasn't a lot of them. Not very many Polish got out of Poland when it fell in '39, but a good amount. A good amount of air pilots, a good amount of commandos. There was, the the big thing about the Polish air troopers that were used in Market Garden, the Operation Market Garden, which was where they were going to take a bunch of bridges in Belgium or wherever, and of course that operation failed, and one of the Polish commander actually got a little bit of the blame, and so everybody knows that the Polish did fight, and I don't want to shortchange them. I actually have Polish. I'm descent of Polish immigrants, not 100% Polish, but my great grandfather and grandfather and father were Polish, and so I just wanted to let you know I'm not shortchanging them if I don't say it every single time. But anyway, Sicily was attacked by the British and the USA. I think the British went up this side and the USA came in here, and we will know that for a fact when I actually run the first term, because they're already set to invade, and these are the areas that they invade, and I'm pretty sure that the British invade on this side and the Americans invade to the west of that, and then the overall commander of the Sicilian forces was, I want to say, Patton, and I don't know if he had been relieved of command yet, but I want to say Patton, and Bernard Montgomery was the commander of the British forces, and there was a lot of squabbling between the two, and Patton raced up through Sicily as fast as possible, and I think he possibly got to Messina first, but and it pissed Montgomery off because Montgomery didn't like Patton, and Patton didn't like Montgomery. But then Patton got into trouble for it because he had been told not to do it or something, and it just became a big mess. I mean, it's just politics, you know what I mean? You got two guys that think they're the best, and their troops think they're the best, and then they get into a pissing match. I'm the best. No, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. I'll show you who's the best. And so, anyway, they take Sicily. So that'll be the first turn, will be the amphibious invasion of Sicily. I think I've kind of covered a lot of the air forces and some of the different things. It's a lot of information. I know it's going to be impossible to probably explain it all, but this right here, it says airplanes divided by airfields, and it says 144%. That means that Victoria, and this is Victoria, and it has a little exclamation mark. And what that means is it's overloaded. There are too many airplanes in this airfield. It can't operate efficiently. You would need, I think you would need 245. No, I'm wrong on that. I don't know what that is, but because these numbers are in red, that means that this place is overloaded. They don't have enough support personnel to run this, and so that is also one of the reasons why you have to reorganize your airfields, because you have a lot of bases that are overloaded. As you can see, this one's at 144. You have Benghazi here at 103%, 107% at Matur in Tunisia. So you can see that it's very easy. 144% at Victoria. Well, that's Victoria. I already talked about that. As soon as I said Victoria, I knew I had already mentioned Victoria, but it was down here and up here, and that's because I have it selected right now. So if I were to select Malta or Valletta, I guess that's Valletta at Malta. It's in Malta. Yeah, Malta Air Command. And as you can see, it says if you can almost read that, it says Malta there, and that's the name of the island. And then the airfield is called Valletta, and you can almost read it there. And so they are not overloaded. They are only at 72%. And so I could leave everything in here, but they have a lot of long-range fighters, and that's the night fighter, Mosquito NF2. That means it is a night fighter. So mission setting, night only. And it's a 2-engine, but it is a fighter, and it has a range of 529. It is a long-range fighter, and it is a night fighter. So it's going to go to England. And I haven't started transferring anything yet because I wanted to kind of go through a lot of this stuff, and I know it's a lot of information and not much action for this first episode, but I wanted to kind of, go over the settings, and then go over some of the things that I'm going to try to do. Moving these airfields around, or moving these air squadrons around, takes a long time. It might take an hour or two. It might take 3 or 4 episodes before I get all of my air groups to the right place. So I might get a lot of people saying in the comments, hey, don't show that. I don't want to see that. And if that's true, that's fine. If you don't want to see it, just let me know. If a lot of people say, no, I want to see what you're doing, then let me know that as well. Because I don't want to do a bunch of episodes, as this one is it's 50 minutes now. I don't want to do a bunch of episodes that you're sitting there thinking, damn, I wish he would stop talking and just do and just go. And a lot of this, almost like bookkeeping stuff, do off camera, because it's not that interesting. So if that's the case, let me know, because I definitely don't want to bore you by talking too much and trying to explain too much. But everything that I say is important on some level. It might be something that you can learn on your own, but eventually at some point you're going to have to know it. You're going to have to know if your airfield is overburdened at 103% in Benghazi, or 40% or whatever it was in Victoria. Where is Victoria? If we select Victoria, 144%. You'll have to know that this airfield is overburdened, or any airfield is overburdened. So it's everything I talk about, you have to know. If you don't have enough support personnel for the airfields, you're going to have to know that. You're going to have to know a bunch of different things. Unless you let the AI run your air war, then you probably won't have to know all this. You won't get as much out of the game if you do it that way. Now, there are pros and cons for each way. The pro for just using the AI means you don't have to spend a lot of time in the air war, obviously. And you might get a lot more fun out of it if you don't like fooling around with air war. The con is, if you really do like controlling everything and doing everything very efficiently and being able to, beat the game on challenging, the con of using AI in that situation, it's not as efficient as if you run the air war yourself. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. If you want me to explain all this, I will, but I am going to do the air war manually. So I can do it off camera, or I can do it on camera. It's up to you. But you're going to miss me clicking on this going, wow, look at that. This was a real airplane. Somebody flew these airplanes in the war. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's kind of neat looking at that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's up to you. So, eventually you're going to have to know a lot of this stuff. Toggle rail damage on, off, toggle forts on and off. A lot of this stuff is similar to what War in the East had. So you might already know that. So just let me know. I haven't really done much. I haven't really done much in this turn. So I don't know if it's going to be something somebody watches about 10 minutes of and says, screw this. Or they're going to go, man, I really want to learn about this. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on it, but after watching several videos and reading the manual and also reading posts on the forums, I know a pretty good amount of what's going on. I think I have a decent, if I could say, on a scale of 1 to 100%, I'd say I'm at 78% of understanding what's going on in the air war, and that I can, at 78%, I can get some enjoyment out of, processing the air war manually and doing it myself. So let me know on that. Do you want me to do all the air movements off camera, or do you want me to do it on camera? Even if it's just one person, if I don't have anybody telling me what they want me to do, I'm probably going to do it on camera. So just, if a bunch of people, if I have 15 people say, no, 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 don't do that on camera, I won't. But if I have, 7 people that say they do want it and 3 that say they don't, I'm probably going to do it on camera. So, just so you know. And honestly, I don't know everything, so you're probably going to see, if you're an experienced gamer and watch this, which, somebody might ask, why would an experienced gamer watch your video? Well, honestly, I watch people's videos all the time, and I'm not necessarily that experienced, but there are games I've played a lot, and I'll watch other people's playthroughs of it just to get, a different perspective, or it's just interesting to me. So I think that some experienced players do watch these videos, and sometimes it's just to maybe critique it. And, if you got positive critique, I welcome that. If you're just going to say, oh man, you suck, or post, oh man, you suck, well, that's not positive, and I'm probably going to delete your comments. So just a fair warning on that. But most people are very nice and very thoughtful and very helpful. If they know more than you do, they'll go, hey man, what, you could do this, and this is much more better. This is much better than the way you're doing it. You should try this. Those people abound. You'll find so many people like that, and it really helps. So, as I said, post on this video saying whether you like the explanations I'm giving or whether you hate them. And if I explain something incorrectly, you're welcome to point that out too. As I said, positive criticism is welcomed 100%. So this is right at 60 minutes. It's 57 minutes and 12 seconds. So I am going to close here. I know it was awful long, but there's a lot of information to cover. It's almost like taking a class in college or high school even. There's a lot of information to cover, and when you take a class in college, it's usually an hour and 15 minutes, hour, and sometimes you have all of your week classes on one day, and it's a 2-hour class or a 3-hour class. So it's a lot of information. You could probably have a college course on playing these games. Really, I mean, that's hilarious. But you could probably have a full college course of people teaching you this game. Now it says I'm at minus 1200 VP, so I guess I'm already starting in the hole, and that's probably due to you get negative VPs and info screens, victory points, city VPs minus 1200. That's why I've got certain cities that I have to capture. Possible city points 589. Well, look at some of this. As you can see, it gives you the scoring of what's an Allied decisive victory, anything over 2,000 points. If you capture Berlin, I think you almost automatically are going to be over 2,000 points, and it's going to be an Allied decisive victory. You got to capture it before August 3rd, 1945, or before the Russians, because the Russians could get there. So anyway, that's it for episode 1. I hope you stick around. I hope you enjoy it. I am definitely going to enjoy learning this game. Yeah, it's on. We're coming for you, Hitler. They're coming for you. And Mussolini. Mussolini was in Italy. We're coming for both of you sons of bitches. We're not going after Hirohito. Japan isn't in this one. Not in this game. But he's off somewhere. He's off somewhere skulking around. No, I shouldn't say that. I know a lot of Japanese still revere him and the emperor, and so I don't have anything bad to say about them. So anyway, right at 60 minutes. So I will see you next time. Thanks a lot.